Welcome to the CLIMAX Academy Live. This is Jim Miller, the Global Training Manager. I'm back with you again today for our weekly tech sharing. CLIMAX has always been on the forefront of adopting new ways to solve customers' problems, and during these crazy COVID-19 times, it's no different. So we're going to go over a video today, and I would like to invite you to ask any questions during the video, and then at the end of the video, we'll address those. So if you would, look at the bottom of your screen. The questions will be under Zoom Q&A, and just feel free to ask any questions, even if it's not about this particular session. And we're collecting those, and we're going to be putting a series together where we come to you once a week and have different videos. We'll always start with a live stream. We'll have the video, we'll do a demonstration, and then we'll have a Q&A at the end. So next week we're going to be going through the bore measuring caliper, which fits really well with the bore measuring tool here that we're going to do today. So always, before we do any kind of a demonstration or a get-together, we're always going to talk about safety first. Safety is our #1 priority here at CLIMAX, and we always want to keep the operator safe, and we always want to keep you safe so you can continue to do your job. So the first thing we do is what we refer to as a risk assessment. Basically what that means is we look around our environment anytime we're coming into a new situation, or even one that we work in every day. We want to watch for trip hazards. We want to watch for anything that could come in our way, that we want to mitigate that chance for us to trip or fall or put our hand somewhere it shouldn't be. So we want to watch out for cords. We want to watch out for air hoses, any kind of sharp objects, chips that we come in contact with, metal shavings, the cutting tools themselves. Even though today is only a video watching a measuring tool, we still want to always be aware of our environment, any kind of pinch hazards that we might have. So often I get the question, why would I need a bore measuring tool? But, it's a time saver, really, is what it is. It's designed to save you from having to pull the bar out of a line boring machine and pulling the tool head off, putting a bore mic in the bore, and measuring the bore. Now, that is the most accurate method. Don't take me wrong here. The most accurate thing you can do is a precision bore mic, and with a clear bore and nothing in your way. But time's money. Nobody's going to leave a $5 bill laying on the ground, or even a $20 bill laying on the ground. If you're making $120 an hour labor rate, and you spend 2.5 minutes on something, that's $20. So every minute counts. So this is a big time saver. It allows you to clamp the tool right on the bar, measure the bore, get a real close, accurate measurement of it, and you can keep on working. And then when you get really close, then that's the time to slow down and really take your time with something. So anyway, enough about that. We'll go ahead and just remind you that any questions you might have, just put them on the chat, the Zoom Q&A at the bottom. And if we don't get to them this time, definitely we'll make accommodations for that coming up. So. Hello, my name is Jim Miller, and I'm the Global Training Manager for CLIMAX Portable Machine Tools. And today we're going to talk about the use and operation of the bore measuring tool. We have a variety of these tools, and if you want more specific details, contact your local area sales manager. So this particular model is the 79151. This unit will allow you to clamp onto an 1 1/4 bar, an 1 3/4 bar, or a 2 1/4 bar, any one of our traveling bar, boring bar line. In a minute, we're going to take it out of the box, and we're going to show you how all the buttons work. Okay, so let's go ahead and open up the box. So inside the box, you'll find the laminated instruction sheet for setting the unit, and you'll see the operator's manual for the unit itself. You'll also have one extended tip and the wrenches that are required to adjust the unit. So let's go ahead and set it out on the bench here, and we'll get started. So first, let's go ahead and start out with a rundown of all the components. So we have a toggle type clamp, and that allows you to clamp it onto the bar. As you can see, this is an adjustable height. So I can set it for the diameter of bar that I'm working with, and then I can have it so that it clicks over and holds it securely to the bar. The next item up is the clamp for the stylus. And again, I mentioned that if there's an extended stylus, you can also replace the stylus with a dial indicator if you really want to be precise in how you set this, but that's the benefit of it. You can loosen the clamp and then replace the stylus itself with a dial indicator. It has the readout of the reader itself, and we'll go through how all the buttons and all that functions in just a little bit. But for right now, I have the ability to clamp the stylus, and then I also have the ability to loosen the stylus and clamp the thumb screw for fine adjustment. And again, we'll talk about those features in real world when we put it onto the bar and show you how that works. But for now, those are the main features of the unit. Okay, so now let's talk about all the features of the reader itself and how to set it. So the first thing we get a lot of questions on, my battery went dead and now I've got to put a new battery in, so I've got to reset everything. So let's just start with that. We'll go ahead and pull the battery out and replace it so that you see how to reset the unit. So usually when you put a new battery in, it'll automatically default to the metric setting. So the first thing, depending on whether you want to work in metric or inch, today my example will be in inch. So I'll go ahead and convert it over to the decimal point where I have 0.001 as my default setting. So anywhere along the line, I can reset the readout. So let's just go up the screen. So absolute gives me the ability to dip into the programmed number or set the number from where I'm at to where I want to go. And that'll become clear once we see the number settings internally to the unit. The hold button is merely so that if I have a remote setting and I want to set the unit and then hit the hold, no matter where I move the dial after I've hit that hold, it stays. So then I can get my reading, document my reading, and then I can go back and take an actual measurement. So to get it out of hold, I touch the button again, and the H goes away on the screen, and it reads from where it actually is at that point. The set button is the button that allows me to go in and change the setting for the pre-programmed offset, and we'll go through that in just a minute. And then the tolerance button, I have a port on the side of the unit that allows me to plug it into a computer, so that if I have a set amount that I want to be able to go from bore to bore to bore, I can set that tolerance zone and be able to document that in that setting. But that's something that most people won't use. So that's the where and why of all the buttons. Now let's go ahead and go in to the actual setting. So from the front screen, I can go ahead and hit the set button, and if you can see, I have the set is flashing, and then it shows all zeros across the preset number. So for now, I'm going to pretend that we're going to set this on a 2 1/4 bar. So I want to measure my bar exactly, and I want to cut that number in half, because this unit works off of the radius of the bar and the radius of the bore. So when I want to change the number to set, I merely hold the set button down, and the unit that is flashing is the one that I can change. Right now, I want this to be in the plus mode because I want it to read plus from where I set it. So I'll go to the next decimal, and the one that's flashing is the one that I can change. So half of my 2 1/4 bar is In this case, I measured my exact bar and it is 1/1000 under. So I'm going to set my preset number to 1.2495, which is half of the distance that it is under the 2 1/4 nominal. So I want the first decimal to be 0. I'm going to hold it again. So now with this flashing, I can change it. So I want that to read 1. I'll go to the next decimal. I want that one to read 1. I'll go to the next decimal. I want that to read 2. I hold that till I go to the next one. I want that to read 4. I hold until the half thousandths flashes. And I missed it. So I'm going to go all the way through. This has happened. This is normal. So I'll go back to where I want the next one to flash. And I see the 5 flashing. I go to the set. And now it's set. Now my preset, so my incremental is preset to that 1.245. So I can merely move it to the point I want, hit the red button, and it calls that out of memory. Now if I want to make an incremental move of, like, say, my tool bit, then I can go into the absolute mode, hold the button, and 0 it. So now let's say I just want to move this up 10 thousandths. I'll move this up until I get a nice even 10 thousandths. Now I've moved the stylus up 10, and I can re-0 it again. So anywhere along the line, I can move it and re-0 it. And then again, when I want to set the unit or set it back to where I'm measuring the actual bar, I go into incremental mode, I move it till it touches the bar, and I call up that number, that 1.245 out of memory, and then I can reset it. So now I'm going to show you a couple of different ways to use the unit. So I put it onto the bar, clamped onto the 2 1/4. Now I like to set it so that I can still have a slight amount of movement, but I want it to be able to stay where I put it. So the clamp is just enough that a little bit of friction will move it, but it's not so tight that I have to force it to move. Because this is a nice chrome bar with a steel base, so it works well that way. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come down to the OD of the bar, and I'm going to reset it to the number that I programmed in, that I just showed you. So the number reads 1.1245, which is half of a bar that's 1/1000ths under. So now that reads the radius of the bar. So now I'm going to come up and I'm going to go over to the tool bit that I've set, and I'm going to just touch the top of the tool bit. So now 2.6485 is the number of the radius from the center line of the bar to the tip of the tool. So if I times that by 2, that'll tell me the exact diameter of the bore that tool bit will create at that setting. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about another way to use the bore measuring tool, and that is to actually measure the bore with the bar in place. So as we've talked about already, I know what the exact radius of my bar is, and now I want to measure the exact height of my tip, and I'm going to add the exact height of my tip to the radius of my bar. Now yours may vary slightly, but in this case, my pre-programmed number for half the diameter of the bar and the tip height together is 1.518. So now I'm going to go ahead and set the unit to read 1.518. So I'm going to go ahead and go into the set mode. I'm going to hold the button down until it gets to the first decimal I want to change. So I want 1.518. So now go to the set flashes. Once the set's flashing, I tap it one time. So that's my pre-programmed number. So that is half of the bar plus the height of the tip. So now when I come down and touch the bar, I can slide in to where it's inside the bore. I come down, touch the bar, pull up my pre-programmed number. Now I can measure the radius of the bore. The radius of the bore is 2.128. So I times that by 2, and that gives me the diameter of the bore. Okay, well, hopefully the video was thorough enough and it answered a lot of your questions, but if not, please feel free to go ahead and log in on those right now. And it looks like we do have a couple questions already, so go ahead, John.
First question is, how accurate is the BMT?
Okay, that's a good question. It's that the resolution of the slide goes down to 5/10. So this particular model measures in the radius of the bore, as we went through in the video. So here's my kind of short answer for that, or maybe it's not short at all. The bore measuring tool, again, is meant for saving you time. There's a lot of things that influence how you use the bore measuring tool. For one thing, the bar has to be a little bit under the bearing size. So there's a little bit of clearance between the bar and the bearing. That can influence the accuracy of the bore measuring tool, or the number that you get. It doesn't really influence the accuracy of the tool. It's just how you're using the tool. I prefer to go ahead and take 2 or 3 measurements around the bar. So I'll put it straight up and down. I'll put it side to side on both sides. And then I try to get the most consistent reading to take the sag portion of that out. Again, like I mentioned before, next week we're going to do the bore measuring caliper, which has no influence on the bar. It basically goes around the bar and measures the bore. In my view, if I had the ability and I was out doing this for a living, I would have both. I would have the bore measuring tool to set the tool height, and I would have the bore measuring caliper to measure the bore, and I would check each against each other every time. I'm kind of a measure twice, cut once type of person, so I want to make sure I get a consistent reading with one tool. And it's not my influence over the tool, it's the tool that's giving me the number. So that's a great question. It's kind of open-ended, and it's a long answer to that. The accuracy of the tool is 5/10. How you get that measurement off of your reading is really the key to that. So good question. Okay, John.
So when removing the battery, are all the settings lost or reset?
Okay, yeah, so when removing the battery, it does lose its memory. It will automatically come back on in the metric at 0. So you do have to, it won't change the tip height, and it won't change the measurement that you get over your bar. You have to put those back in the unit though. So the answer is yes. When you pull the battery out, it goes back to the factory 0, and you have to put in your memory number, whether it's the radius of just the bar or the radius of the bar plus the tip height.
Is there one tool or multiple for different size bars?
So there's multiple BMTs. The difference really is in all the different ones is there's a longer slide and there's a thicker slide, or a thicker stylus. So this particular model is the shortest in overall length. This goes and measures a 12-inch bore, so it's a 6-inch radius, and it's got about a 3-inch envelope that it'll go into. The other models have, there's a short model with a thicker stylus, and then there's a longer model with a thin like this, and then there's a longer model with a thick. So there's a variety based on your particular need. Now, this particular model that we covered today goes from 1¼ up to 2¼ There is also a model that goes from 2¼ to a 3½ bar. And so you'd want to contact your representative, your sales representative, to get the part number for that unit. And it is the longer, and it can come in the thinner or the thicker stylus, but it has a much bigger base. So it's not ideal for the BB5 or the 2¼ bar, just because of the size of the base. It makes it a little more cumbersome in the smaller bar, but it's great for the bigger bar. So good question there.
Do I always have to use the tip provided?
No, I don't. The stylus is actually removable just by taking this clamp out. So I have 2 stylus that come with the unit, and a lot of customers will put like a last word test indicator in the place of the stylus, so they can manipulate the indicator and go straight down, and then go right into a much smaller or even farther into the board. So you're not limited to just the stylus that come with it. That's the beauty of this model, is it gives you the ability to put other features into the clamp for the stylus. So yeah, good question. Next question, John.
So you mentioned time savings. How much time does the BMT actually save the user?
Well, that's kind of a tough one to answer, right? What it does is it keeps you from, okay, let's picture that you just made your first bore, and now I need to measure. Even if it's rough, I can use other methods. I can use like a spring caliper or some method for getting into the bore, but then I have to rely on another piece of equipment to measure that. But if I have to accurately check the bore, I've got to unclamp my drive, unclamp my feed unit. I've got to take the boring head off if I have a boring head, or I've got to pull the tool bit out. Then I've got to slide the bar out of the setup so that I have access to put like an inside mic or a bore mic into the board. So you're looking at a good 10 minutes, easy, to have to pull the bar, pull all the unit off there. Then I've got to put the bar back in. I've got to reclamp the feed. I've got to reclamp the drive. I've got to reset whatever tooling I'm using. I mean, it's a fairly good amount of time. Again, it's not ideal if you're trying to just keep the job going until I only have to do that once at the very end just to verify that my numbers are good. So it's a big time saver. We have a lot of people that like to use these, and they're well established throughout the industry as a real ability to cut down on the amount of time that I'm measuring and setting my tool. So good question. Hope I answered it to your right.
So we got a couple of different questions about calibration.
Yes.
Let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. Okay. So from the factory or from us, it'll come with a sticker on the back of it. Now, oftentimes, just due to the way that things ship and are in inventory, this date may not be the date you buy it. But we have a place on the certificate that comes with it that says, write down the date that you got it, and the calibration is good for a year from that. And really, it's not the accuracy of the unit that is less in a year. It really is the time that the gauging is certified. So we go by a national industry standard for calibration, and the tools that are used to calibrate this are calibrated once a year. So the actual gauging that we use has to meet that standard every year. So that calibration then only lasts for that year until it's recalibrated the following year. So it's a great question. It technically is only able to be calibrated or meets the standard for a 1-year period. Not that the unit's any less accurate, or not that it goes bad in a year. It's the fact that it has to be current with that gauging that's used to set it. It doesn't have to come back to us. It's convenient. That way we can check it over and make sure that there's nothing wrong with the unit, and we take them apart, clean them, and it's a real thorough inspection. But it should be done just for cleanliness and accuracy of the unit, so you can rely on it. Good question there.
Is it waterproof?
No. These are battery operated, and there are electronics in this measuring head. That's usually the downfall of this, is it gets wet, or it gets coolant in it, or it has the debris left on the slide before you use it, and you drag that debris in through because it's electrical conductor. There's a magnetic tape in the center here, and there's electronics in the head that read that tape as to where it's at. Super accurate, but it is susceptible to dirt and liquids. So usually these are repairable. There's nothing on them. I mean, even if the reader head goes bad, that can be replaced. The beam can be replaced, the tips and all the screw, everything can be replaced for less than a brand new unit. But they are susceptible to liquid. You have to be careful with that.
Is there any formal training required?
Formal training, it's not required. It's like any of our tools. You can be productive the minute you go to do your job if you've had training on it. Because then if you come here and are trained by our professional staff, you're going to know exactly what you're going to run into in the field, because we've been in the field, we've had a lot of field experience, and we can help you be productive the minute you get your unit. Boring bar, flange facer, mill, any of that. If you don't have that training, the documentation that comes with the machine is adequate for you to figure it out, but it can be a difficult time to kind of stumble through. And again, it's that time is money thing. If you want to be productive right away, get some training. If you like to figure things out on your own and you're good at that, great, more power to you. We've tried to design this in a way that the majority of people with minimal background can make it work. But we're kind of in the park that, or in the ballpark that if you get the training, you're going to be more productive right away. So, okay. So that'll end our session of questions and answers for today. Again, I really want to encourage you to tune in next week, because the partner to this tool is the bore measuring caliper. And we're going to go through, just like we did today, and go through how to turn it on, how to reset all the settings, replace the battery, all the major things. But these tools really work hand in glove together. They allow you to measure the bore directly, and they also allow you to measure the bore indirectly off the bar and set the tool bit height. So a real good combination there. It's one of our real good combinations of measuring. So again, if I didn't get to your question, or if you think of a question later after this session's over, please feel free to submit those to askcpmt@cpmt.com. And again, if you have suggestions about future products that you'd really like to have one of our experts, it won't always be me. And so it might be one of our other experts that goes through a welder or a mill or any other tool that we might have. Give us suggestions, and we'd be happy to cover those in one of these half-hour or 45-minute sessions that we might have. So enjoy. Be safe out there. Try to keep yourself social distance and make sure you wear your masks. And I look forward to meeting you in person someday after this all this COVID thing is over. So take care.